Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Manisha, and today I thought I would film the end of the year book tag. Like nostalgic for this entire year. I don't know, it's just exciting to look back and see what you thought and kind of reminisce on the good reads that you had and the not so great reads. But yeah, I'm just gonna just jump into the tag. So the first question is most disappointing read of the year, and unfortunately I feel like we might be starting out with a hot take, but my answer for this is Play Along by Liz Tomforde. Or Tomforde? Honestly, I don't know. I've heard so many different variations on her last name. I digress. I just feel like this book didn't really capture the potential that it could have. I feel like when we ended Caught Up, there was so much chemistry that was between Kennedy and Isaiah, and there was just so much potential for it to be such a cute story. But then once we got into Kennedy's head, it just immediately just took a nosedive for me personally, because the way that Kennedy thinks of Isaiah is a little bit concerning, because he is the male love interest of this book. So if you have such a low opinion of him already, and it's just because she's a judgy person, like she's just made assumptions and then just assumed that she was correct. And like there were no signs or actions that Isaiah took for Kennedy to think the things that she did, and it just immediately made me feel so icky about her. It just felt like she didn't deserve him, because literally her conflict in this book is working through her feelings about Isaiah. And I don't know, it just rubs me the complete wrong way. I don't know, Isaiah was just such a good guy throughout the entire book, and he was just always trying to meet Kennedy where she was, make her feel comfortable, and, you know, help her grow a little bit out of this negative ideation she has about herself because of her family. And it just felt he was always the one that was putting more effort in, and it just never really equaled out, because she never does something that's showing that she cares about him just as much as he cares about her. And so it didn't give me good vibes when I read that book, unfortunately. So the next question is the underdog read of the year. And for this question, I chose Long Live Evil by Rees Brennan. So this book follows a terminal cancer patient, and she's given the chance to go into the world of her favorite fantasy series and get this flower of life to cure her in the real world. It's a little bit stretch, of course, but it's such a fun book, guys. I genuinely enjoyed it so much. It was just such a good time, and I honestly haven't heard anyone talking about it, and this book definitely needs its flowers. It is just all the tropes you could ever want, and it's like not complex fantasy, it's just very like vibes. It feels like you're just transported to another world and you can turn your brain off and just enjoy being in that world. And I am a little bit biased because my favorite types of anime are isekai, where they're transported to a different world. So this book was kind of just perfect for my personal preferences, but I totally recommend it. It's just incredible, and as kind of simple as the characters are, you just fall in love with them anyways. The next question is favorite book couple of the year, and so we listen, we don't judge. I chose the couple from Lights Out by Navessa Allen, and this man is so caring and kind and thoughtful towards the female main character in this book. I can't. Like, he's just so, like, if you love acts of service, this man is like acts of service. Like, he is always just, you know, he's there. He's always there. But the little kind of caveat to this is that it's a dark romance, so of course check out the trigger warnings before you pick this up if you're interested. But guys, he's just so hee and sweet. Like, I love him. He's so perfect for her. Amazing, incredible. And then my second couple, because I could not pick one, was Swanee and Nick from Thank You for Listening by Julia Whelan. And I just randomly picked up this audiobook this year, and I feel like there's so few couples in books that you read about, or I shouldn't say you, but that I read about, that I feel like would actually survive beyond the book. And this is like the one couple, because the way that they communicate and just have so many like micro conflicts instead of just one big third act conflict like a lot of romance books, and then they just work through it, and it's like actual genuine working through it. It's not just like, oh well, we'll just kind of have a plot convenience to let us work through this. Guys, it was just actually perfect. I loved them as a couple. And then this was just such a good book by itself. But anyways, I digress. I'm not gonna talk about that. But they are just such an amazing magical couple. And it's just like they just get each other in a way that you don't really see in a lot of romance books. I feel like when you're reading romance often, you just feel like, yes, there's a lot of chemistry, but it's not always that the characters seem like they're two puzzle pieces together. They fit super well. It's just that they have insane chemistry. And that's just how I feel. But these two characters genuinely felt like puzzle pieces, like made for each other. The things that they've had to deal with and the way that they've dealt with it is just so like similar to each other that they just relate on a different level that's more than emotional and more than physical. And it was really good. Okay, the next question is favorite main characters of the year. And I only have one, and I'm going to be honest, I don't think I'm going to continue this series beyond the first book. And I think it's going to be a trilogy. But guys, Kai Azar from Powerless, are you kidding me? He was just, the flirtation was just out of control. Him and Peyton were just so cute. Like, it was just, the way that he acts towards her is just, man, is just down bad, and I appreciate that for him. Okay, the next question is a book that surprised you, and I literally wait all the time to talk about this book. So it's Check and Mate by Hazelwood. And before you let any preconceived notions cloud your thoughts about this, guys, obviously it is YA, but it's still like upper YA. Like the main character is 18 or 19. So obviously if you're like 14 picking this up, it might not be appropriate. But the way that Hazelwood captured just complex family dynamics, which is like my absolute, like, if there's complex family dynamics in a book, I'm going to love it so much. So just the way that that was captured in the story, in Mallory's just being and how that like impacted her, was just so well explored and executed. And then I loved how much the male love interest had his own kind of story and background to him, and they were just such rich characters. It was so good. And also just having like the dynamic that she's the oldest sibling. She has 3 younger siblings, and her mom is not able to consistently work, so she is kind of essential to the survival of the family. And then how that dynamic is impacting her relationships with them. Guys, okay, the next question is new favorite author you discovered in 2024. And you may not believe it, but I only jumped on the Abby Jimenez hype train this year, and I've been missing out. In the beginning of the year, started with Yours Truly, and then I jumped into Part of Your World, and I rated those 4.75 and 5 stars respectively. I think the way that Abby Jimenez writes in personal conflict with romance is just like chef's kiss. And then the other author that I discovered this year was Liselle Sambury, and she's the author of Tender Beasts, which was a like horror thriller book. Captured my heart. I loved her writing. It was just so captivating. Like I think also the style of that book really got me, because I love a like past and present kind of perspective, and then how it's all coming together at the end when it's tied up. And she did it so well. She tied up all the loose ends so well into like just like when all the pieces kind of come together at the end. It's just stunning. The next question is the most frustrating book you read in 2024. And unfortunately, I have to say Beartown by Fredrik Backman. And for the sole reason that this book was just so like hot and cold for me, because there were some scenes I was crying. I was like, wow, prose is so good. This scene's emotional impact, amazing, incredible. But overall, I feel like the way that this story was told, I didn't love it. One, because when I finished the book, I thought, what was the point of this story? Because we're really just getting kind of like a fictionalized way that the main problem of this book would play out. But it was completely realistic in how it played out, which was just honestly disappointing to me personally, because I was kind of hoping something would happen, but this was almost just like reading the news. Like, it was just like, okay, that's exactly what would happen in real life. I just felt like I wanted to like this book so much, and I just really didn't. So the next question is the best adaptation of the year. And guys, I'm so sorry. I have like 5 of them, and in all honesty, I did not read most of these before I watched them, but I did watch a lot of content that was just like book to show or book to movie adaptations this year, and they were all so banger, so I have to mention them all. Even though it says best, I'm sorry, there's 5 best. I have to start with number 1, which is Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the show. Okay, so I did take a little bit to get into it because, you know, I feel like there's a little bit of having to escape your kind of head canon of what exactly this media should look like and how the characters should act. But at some point, after the first like 2-3 episodes, I kind of let it go and just enjoyed it for what it was. It was phenomenal. My 10-year-old self couldn't be happier. And you know, these are children and they're doing so well. You can just tell how much love and care and attention is going into everything. The set, the story that they're telling, because they did deviate a little bit away from the story, like very minorly, just for it to make sense plot-wise, because you know, sometimes when you're watching something, the plot holes are much more evident, or just, you know, just the sake of storytelling, you know, having it stand a little bit apart from the books, I feel like is better because it allows it to just kind of take a little bit of a life of its own and not try to be a one-to-one, because things just don't make sense the same way they do in a book when you're watching it. And so I think that just having these little discrepancies just really made it better. Okay, the next one I watched was Maxton Hall, and I randomly started this and I didn't even know it was a book to movie until, or book to show, until I had already finished it, and I was just like Googling it, and it was just like enemies to lovers, and then like he falls first, he's like drawing her from memory, and he like saves her from a pool, and it's just... The next one is Marry My Husband, which is an adaptation of a webtoon. And guys, the way I was glued to my seat literally every week, I loved it. I just love romance and kind of like thriller mystery type shows, and this was so well done. I loved it. And it was just the actress for like the best friend of the main character, she played her role so well. I literally hated her. She was so good. She killed it. And then I watched My Lady Jane, and guys, did they really need to eat that hard? Did they? Because the way I binged this show, I could not stop. The chemistry between them is insane. Like, you can literally look at like clips of them just talking, and the way that they have physical chemistry with each other is incredible. And then like having the comedy like in the show just really helped it not stay like too stagnant or serious, and it kind of just pushed the plot along. It was great. It was great. And then last but not least, certainly not least, is Pride and Prejudice. So I read the book and then I watched the movie, and oh my gosh, guys, I think I just didn't even know what longing was until that scene in the rain. The way that that got me, and I like immediately had to like replay it, because that was insane to watch and experience. That was like perfection. Like, that was so good, and I was really missing out prior to this. Okay, so the next question is the longest book you've read this year. So the longest book I read was Shadow Princess by Suzanne Valenti and Caroline Peckman, and that is clocking in at 746 pages. I don't have anything to really say because it's in the middle of a series, so spoilers. But also, I genuinely just don't remember. I feel like all the books that I have read in that series are kind of merging together, so I don't really remember what exactly happens in which book. The next question is shortest book you've read this year, and the shortest book Storygraph is telling me I've read is Two Can Play. This follows 2 video game designers who are part of rival companies, but they're forced by like a larger corporation to work together to collaborate on a book series adaptation to a video game. And now they have to reconcile because they're forced to go on a retreat together to see if their 2 companies can make nice. Who's to say what happens? But it is only like 4 hours as an audiobook, so it does move incredibly fast. Okay, and then the next question is my favorite covers of the year, and I have to, of course, mention Tender Beasts. If you watched my Get Spooky reading vlog, I was talking about how much I love this cover, and I mean, come on. This is stunning. I just love the way that everything is rendered. Like, I just love it. I love the color palette. And then I love also that the cover genuinely gives you a good sense of the atmosphere and vibe of the book. And then I have to, of course, also say Long Live Evil. And I'm 100% biased because this cover was done by like one of my favorite artists, Vitir. That's her like username, but her name is Sid Mills. Her art is always top tier. Love it. Next question is cringiest book you've read this year. And I genuinely feel like I wasted my money buying this book because I just don't like it so much. It was Powerful by Lauren Roberts. And the way that this book made me dislike this character in the series, like, how many times can you say the phrase tripping into love or like falling into, like, she says something like that all the time, like she was tripping into love. And then also, this girl is tripping everywhere. And I know that, like, in the book space, we kind of, like, joke a little bit that we want a bit of an incompetent character, and then, like, having this competent female character is getting, like, overplayed. But wow, I if I ever said that, I retract my statement, because I just did not like this character at all. And she was in the first book and I thought it was fine because, you know, she's a side character, so it doesn't really matter. Like, she was there to play a role in that book and she played it. But in this book, she's just not meant to be the main character. And also, I feel like this book was just really made to introduce the other character of this book into the main series, and for no other reason. So, like, it's fine. I see what the author did there, and it's fine. And then the next question is book with the most unique concept. I'm gonna be honest, I think nowadays it's very, very hard to have a unique concept because, you know, there's just so many books out there already that it's very hard when you're reading something to not think, oh, this is just like this other book, or very similar to this book, or this concept is like, so, you know, it's very hard. But I think of this year, I think what comes to mind is The Arm of the Sphinx by Josiah Bancroft. So this book is the second book in the series, and obviously I'm not going to spoil what happens in that book, but the premise of the series is that there's the Tower of Babel in this world, which is basically a giant tower, which every level is a ringdom, which has different customs and rules and governing bodies. And so it's kind of like a highly traveled to place in this world. And so the main character, Senlin, goes there on honeymoon with his new wife. However, right outside the tower is this kind of giant market, which is well known for people getting lost within. And what happens? He loses his wife. So he kind of hopes that, okay, I'll just meet her at the level of the tower that we agreed to meet and kind of stay at for our honeymoon. So he goes in, kind of just ends up journeying through this tower to find his wife. And I'll leave it there. A lot more actually happens, a lot of shenanigans, but okay. And then arguably one of my favorite questions, books that you read this year that you would reread. And guys, to my core, I'm a rereader. I do not care how much I have on my TBR. I love to reread things because I know it's going to give me a good vibe and I know I'm going to have a good time. So I have a list for this one, but I'll keep it short and to the point, hopefully. So the first book is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Guys, I was kind of shocked by this book because the way that Ali Hazelwood actually had like genuine plot and world building in this, and it was really well done. Like, I shouldn't be shocked, but I was. Thank You for Listening by Julia Whelan. I already explained they're the only couple that I see would actually have a future, and I would love to reread their story again. And then Tender Beasts by Liselle Sambury, because it kind of became like a comfort read. Like, I would read it every year around Halloween. I don't know when, but I will definitely also read Pride and Prejudice. I feel like classics, you need a little bit of time to let them kind of simmer in your consciousness, but I definitely will reread it because it was actually a very like just entertaining book, and I feel like I shouldn't say it like so like in awe, but I feel like I've tried to read this book before and I couldn't get into it, but the writing was actually very like easy to digest this time around for some reason. And then Part of Your World and Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. Already mentioned I love those books and rated them really highly. And Check and Mate. Okay, so the last question of this tag is, after 2024, what are you prioritizing in 2025 reading wise? So this year was like my year of discovering I love dark romance, and obviously I don't think it's something I could read all the time because it definitely does put me in a different headspace that I don't think I want to stay in like all the time. I do need things to like break them up, but I definitely highly enjoy them. They're like candy. Can't eat them all the time, but I do love a good candy. So definitely finding new authors, just trying out different tropes and genres with like subgenres within dark romance, I think would be really good. And then I also want to read more classics. I think I kind of have this little bit of like, I don't want to read classics because like in my mind they're gonna be like so dense and hard and like it's gonna take so much mental energy to read them. But I think reading Pride and Prejudice and Jane Austen kind of changed my mind a little bit on this because, again, I found her writing so digestible and easy to understand. And that's not to say that I wasn't pulling out my phone every page, if not multiple times every page, to find out what words mean or like what the word means in the context of the way that she was using it. But yeah, I definitely do want to try more classics out. Okay guys, that is it. And thank you so much for listening to me absolutely yap. Happy Bookmas, guys.